Visiting UnderTheHoodShow.com.
Thanking you for tuning in to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show. Have a great day, and remember, PTLA.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us under the hood.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. 866-594-4150. What's caught your attention in the automotive world?
It's a big day.
What day is it, Russ?
Yeah.
It's the first week of August.
Well,
1990, and it is the first Under the Hood show ever. No, it's not. It's the 31st anniversary of the Under the Hood radio show, marked by the beginning of the Sioux Empire Fair, which started today.
Wow, you're right.
Ta-da!
he was quizzing us before the show what today was, and we were thinking of some really twisted, weird things, thinking of, okay, how do we get deep into that Russ brain to see what he might be thinking of?
Right.
And it was something right in front of us.
I only remember because when I open up the old laptop and post the podcast every week, I had to change last night when I posted it to season 32. Because we're starting season 32 with this episode, so I had to change that.
It has looked the.
Now I'm thinking of corn dogs.
You can go get one tonight.
I'm thinking of trying to identify a car that has been crushed, and all of the things have been that contest. Talk about that contest. That I loved that thing every year, and I never ever even got close.
I never have had the energy and excitement for that my dad did. And my dad's still going 100 miles an hour, but yeah, we used to bring out a vehicle many times that would be crushed, cubed into a ball by the car crushing machines, and then we'd have people guess what it was. And it was always interesting. You'd have tens of thousands of people that would look at it, and you'd get just a few people that would guess it. Always fun. And then we'd always have some vehicle out there that would be an awareness campaign of somebody that survived a very bad accident and was able to use the safety mechanisms in the vehicle to survive. And so we could have a survival story and remind people about being safe in their vehicles.
That was always neat because it had the story with it.
Yeah, we'd always look for a story, but eventually that just ran to an end. But not the Under the Hood show. It's still going.
The cubed car, you would remove as much of the identifying marks as you could, including trim.
Yeah, my dad, he's a wonderful man, and he should write a book or have somebody write a book. And it would probably be labeled, we think, everything I learned about marketing from Fred Buckmiller. And anybody that's a local will get that. But he grew up around the racetrack, and he grew up around a lot of events, and he saw just all kinds of different promotions and ideas. And I think our whole family's part Carney.
I would agree with that assessment.
You concur with that?
Yeah,
for
sure.
We all have a little bit of that crazy promotional gene inside of us to figure out a good way to get people's attention. And that was something that was done that worked really well. And it was fun. And it's just another way that we helped educate people about our professional automotive recycling facility, which is what spawned the idea from my mom to have the Under the Hood show. And so I started doing that show solo in August of 1990, and I really did forget about that anniversary, and that's bad because I was the one sitting in the chair.
Yeah, how old were you?
20 years old.
Okay.
And I was listening to that show. I was working in an electronics store with Ron Sabers, and he's like, we got to turn this on because my buddy's going to be doing this show. And I went,
this is where Russ makes fun of me.
I don't think it's ever going to go anywhere. I said, I don't think the show will ever go anywhere. Things change, don't they?
Yeah, I was in 8th grade, So that's great for you guys. No, I'm kidding. It was
You
not.
were not in
It was
8th grade.
866-594-4150. Whose idea was it, going back to the cubed car again, whose idea was it to start leaving red herrings for? There was
Oh, it was my dad's.
maybe a sticker or a piece of
It was my
trim
dad-
from something else left on the
It was my dad's.
ground, and that was good. That was a good, that was a fun
And
contest.
every once in a while, there'd be something to take you a different direction, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
866-594-4150. Let's go to North Carolina and talk to Jim. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Jim, what can we do for you?
Hey, I've got a 2006 Mazda 5, and I need to flush the AC evaporator. I'm replacing the compressor. The thermal expansion valve is under the dash, connected right to that evaporator. Is there a technique to flush that without getting solvent all over the carpet of the car?
Yeah, you shouldn't flush the evaporator.
Oh,
That's-
that's not the answer he was expecting.
No, you can't get
Yeah.
all the flush stuff out of it, and it's extremely rare that you're ever going to get anything into the evaporator because it typically won't get past it. If the compressor explodes and throws metal out, the evaporator, the condenser up front makes an extremely efficient filter, and that thing will. It's so small in the passages that, especially in that car that takes like a pound of refrigerant or less, it's going to filter most of it. And then if it gets all the way through that, through the lines, all the way to the expansion valve is going to pretty much pick up every bit of what's left. I don't think we've ever seen an evaporator that still had anything in it. And then it's going to contain, there's going to be part of the oil in the system too. So
you would replace the condenser if you knew you had a compressor that launched.
condenser, compressor, any line that has a muffler built into it, and that expansion valve. That's what the manufacturers recommend as well.
Perfect.
Yeah, they're not recommending. Manufacturers don't recommend replacing the evaporator unless it leaks or flushing that evaporator, because, like I said, you can't get all the where it settles in the bottom. You can't get all the flush out of there, and it'll kind of contain it, and that's harmful to the system. So I think you should be fine. If do you have metal in your system?
Not sure yet, but I'm assuming so because the compressor is seized.
If it's seized up and you start looking at lines and you find metal coming out of the compressor, which you not always do on the Mazda, especially, it'll just turn black. They called it the death on these Fords.
Black death.
Yeah, because it was just coated with this black carbon material inside. But the metal would usually stop. You'll probably find no metal past the condenser at all, which is great for you because your expansion valve, you replace it, replace the condenser, follow the lines, and if you see any mufflers on the lines, like the big metal cans built into the line, you got to replace that line because it's going to trap that metal, and then put the right oil charge in it, evacuate it, recharge it, and it should be good to go.
Does that help you out there,
Thank
Jim?
you so much. You just saved me a big headache.
There you
Yeah,
go, Jim.
absolutely.
Yeah, and
Thanks so much.
the condensers have gotten so much more affordable for most all these cars. There's usually an option available. The factory condensers can be quite expensive, but we've even seen some of those where they've come down to be less than $200. Now, I say not very expensive, but in the grand scheme of an air conditioning repair and what it costs, and you want to get that system right, that's a small price to pay. And then there's some of them that the aftermarket replacements that come from other companies, $80, $90 for a condenser.
We were shocked the other day. A lot of those prices are going through the roof, but we bought a kit that came with a condenser, compressor, the dryer, which was attached to the whole thing, and it was the retail on it was like $280, which shocked me because they're usually way more than that, but it was complete.
866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show. 866-594-4150. From the Autotempest.com studios, all the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. Now let's talk to Nancy. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Nancy, what can we do for you?
Good morning. How are you guys today?
Fantastic. Thanks
Great.
for calling.
Good. I have a 2001 F-250 7.3 and love my truck. But in March, I took it out like my mechanics tell me to keep it moving. And I did. Came back, parked it, and went out a couple days later, and battery was dead. I'm going, wait a minute. Okay, so I tried charging them, and I couldn't get it charged with my old battery charger enough to get it going. So my mechanics came out and got it, and they could charge it with their newer equipment, but it wouldn't stay charged. So they thought they had it fixed. They thought they'd bring it home, and it ended up being the alternator. So on the third alternator that's in it now, and I do know the batteries are new because they were put in October of 19, and I made them do Motorcraft. So since it's been a couple of 3 or 4 months, do you guys have any idea what could be sucking the electricity out every day? I mean, you can charge it up. They'll get it started, but if it goes overnight, it's dead in the morning.
The first thing I would do would be to disconnect both batteries, at least take the negative cable off of each battery, and charge both of them fully and leave them disconnected and see if it's dead the next day. Because I've got 2 Motorcraft batteries in one of my vehicles that are 9 months old, and one of them is bad, and it kills the other one because the one goes dead and it pulls the other one, drags it right down to the bottom of the ocean with it. So I need to replace it.
Well, I did see the other day when I was at the shop, you had the battery charger on your truck.
I did, and it's got one bad battery in it. So
there's things you don't see in life. One would be like a unicorn. Mm-hmm. 2 would be Russ with battery chargers on his truck.
Right.
Yeah. So I was like, why is this thing going dead? Better test it. Oh, look, the driver's side battery is dead.
So now we're not casting verdict on Motorcraft batteries, but he's just saying let's not rule that out because we've made that mistake ourselves before where you're so sure that this is good, it's got to be good, that you do everything else and you forget that, and then all of a sudden you're like,
that's what it was.
I think it's mine and hers because that's the only ones that I've had to replace here in 10 years
been a while
on that one. But we sell AC Delco batteries at our shop. That's our primary one we sell. Sell a lot of them. And every once in a while, we have one of those that's bad too, that's very new. But we also see both Motorcraft and AC Delco batteries come in that are 9, 10 years old. And I'm like, why are they still working? You should change that. Well, it's fine. And then the customer says, my battery went bad like a week later. What's going on with that?
Well, so if you, so put that aside. Check that.
Disconnect, charge, retest.
And after that, we hate to take people too far down the road when there's something we really want them to check first. But we do get a number of calls about parasitic drains on vehicles. And this one here sounds like
those suck.
This sounds like they power. This sounds like a little more than that if it's overnight. Because a lot of the people come and they talk to us about something over a few days that goes drained. And that's
a diesel. Big batteries. 2 big batteries to be completely dead overnight.
But you got a combination of either the alternator's a good place to look at like they were doing, glow plug relays that can engage, and if those glow plugs happen to engage when they're not supposed to, they can suck a battery down.
Well,
Ford pickups are known for door latches that don't trigger off the interior lighting.
But I left my dome light, my interior lights, all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 bulbs in there.
They're not LEDs?
No.
I can't believe you haven't converted those.
Why not?
Why? They work fine. I like incandescent. I like LEDs too, but I like those. But anyways, I digress. Friday night, I pulled the truck in, and I, for some reason, hit the dimmer, and they were on. I got in it Monday morning, closed the door, and went, oh, look, my lights are on. Click, turn them off, and the truck started. So 2 big batteries, fully charged, should hold. It takes a lot to pull them down. And
so we are talking a pretty high amp draw.
Yeah, all those bulbs are drawn probably 10 amps, but still, that's a long time. You would have to have a pretty big drain to pull that thing down overnight.
And it could be a combination of the 2, maybe?
Yeah, I've left my headlights on for 4 hours and hit the key and it started up, and that's a much bigger drain. So I think it would have to be something big, like Shannon said, glow plugs kicking on, which is possible with that controller on the 7.3. Alternator, and it would physically be hot. You'd be able to touch it after 3 or 4 hours and go, hey, that thing's pretty warm on a cold engine. Something's pulling it down. It's about the only 2 things can pull that much current. I would check that battery first. Let's start at the basics and see where we're at.
Would this be a good time to buy a laser pointer thermometer?
You look for reasons to buy one of them all the time.
Yeah, Nancy, I don't know if you have one of those, but that would be good to check the alternator with one of those. I'll come over. I'll go get one and come over because I want.
We get one of those in his hands, and everything is measured for heat.
Absolutely. Nancy, good luck. I hope that gets you going in the right direction. And then then it becomes a game of cat and mouse once you get past.
I can't stand the current drain things. I mean, they're there. And we had a listener called us back last week and said, "Hey, I heard you talking about current drain. Well, they make these inductive ones now. You just clamp on it." Yes, we're a professional shop. We're in the shop every single day. So we see, I appreciate when people mention those things because 5 years ago, I wouldn't have heard of it. But we do see those. In our opinion, in our shop, we have units that range from $20 to $800. They don't work as well as I would like them to work. They show something, but they're not great. But they will tell you, yes, there's a drain. No, there's not a drain. So you could use inductive ones like that to just clamp on if you don't want to disconnect a battery. But we like the old tried and true, disconnect a cable, put a meter physically in line and watch it.
And in Nancy's case, it should be big enough draw that it's findable, right? If it's doing it overnight.
Oh, gosh, yes. I mean, it's going to tell you yes or no. And that's a good way to test them. And we also have units that we've purchased that you connect there to check the inductance, but then we can walk down the line with our handheld meter and see where it goes from, oh, look, there's a drain to nothing. So if there was a short under the carpet, we can find it without tearing the car completely apart. We can just go down the line. And then there it is, and then we can move the carpet, but we don't have to take it apart like we used to. So there's tools out there to help you.
Nancy, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Jay in Arkansas. Jay, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Howdy, I've got a 2001 S10 I bought from a guy at work. And, he's had it about 2 years, and he was telling me that the truck runs great, except when it gets above 85 degrees and it loses a cylinder and it starts missing. Well, he sold it to me for $500. I found a vacuum leak on it and stopped that. And I told him, I said, I stopped the vacuum leak and it's running fine. He said, it's because it hadn't got to 85 degrees yet. I said, what are you talking about? He said, when it gets to 85, it'll go to missing. And I talked to him, he'd already replaced the coil pack, the wires, the plugs, and sure enough, it got 85 degrees last week on my way home from work. I don't drive it, but every 6 weeks back and forth to work when I'm on call. But I'm on my way home, and it got over 85, and before I got home, it started. It's a 4-cylinder, so when you lose a cylinder, it starts bucking pretty bad, trying to take off. What does 85 degrees have to do with anything? I mean, the temperatures sit in the same place on the gauge all the time. It's full of water. There's antifreeze. There's nothing. What can 85 degree ambient have to do with?
It could be a function of the computer itself. When it starts pulling intake air temp from outside, when it's pulling through that air tube, fresh air, and it gets to a certain point, the computer has just lost its marbles. It's not thinking the strategy correct. Because what I'm thinking is if you've got that truck, if it's 80 degrees outside and it's running fine, and you go drive it and you're all right, but you sit and you're sitting idling at a stop sign and with air on or air off, whatever, it may not have air, but you let that thing sit and idle for 15, 20 minutes, it's going to get way hot under that hood, and it should start missing at the lower temp. So if sitting there and under hood temp, sunny outside, cloudy outside, doesn't make any effect, but it's almost exactly at 85 degrees, and then the engine computer's under that hood too, so it's more than likely got to be something where when the computer sees that intake air temp hits a certain temp, it's changing its strategy and going into a misfire mode. You could unplug the intake air temp sensor, which is going to put it into it's going to throw a number at it because it's going to think, okay, it's way cold because it's disconnected, so we're just going to put a made-up number in there to make it run pretty good. If it runs good all the time, then it's a computer problem, or you've got a problem with that intake air temp sensor. You could actually read it on a scanner, and it might say 300 degrees, 280. It could be way off, which would cause it to miss. So you could have a bad intake air temp sensor, could have a bad computer. Just start finding that. Just picture it's an 01, so it's OBD2. You could pick up a really cheap Bluetooth scanner for that, plug it in under the dash, look at it on your phone, and it'll tell you what the codes are and also the data of the vehicle. You're going to want to look at temperatures on the data of the vehicle, and that's a good place to start, super cheap for you to do as well.
Does that help you out there, Jay?
Well, I've got a reader, and it told me I had a faulty signal on injector 3. But it doesn't say anything about air temperature. It just, that was the code it threw because check engine light came on when it started missing. And I was driving down the highway, so I wasn't sitting in traffic. But
if it says that you have a fault on an injector, it's seeing a circuit that's shorted or open, too much resistance, something's going on in that circuit, and that can be caused by internal memory issue in the computer. That you'd verify that by physically testing each one of the injector wires with a multimeter to make sure they're all the same. But if you've done that, you've checked all of them, they're good, and the resistance of each injector is the same, it could be the computer itself.
And you could try changing an injector and see if the problem moves too. Just to double check an injector.
Yep. Swap it from one cylinder to the other.
Jay, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. The phone number to reach us, 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. And don't forget, if you like us on Facebook or subscribe on YouTube and join the Hoodie fan club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Brad Green, who listens to us in Lincoln, Nebraska. Congratulations from all of us under the hood and our friends over at Universal Technical Institute. They're here to get you trained for a job. And I had somebody ask the other day, well, why should I go get trained for any job anywhere? Because there's so many jobs available right now. I don't need training. Today, there may be jobs available. But very shortly down the road,
Could change.
it could change. After watching what happened with Hyundai buying Boston, or why am I losing my mind today?
Boston Dynamics.
Mhm.
Yes. And their thought of, well, we can use this robot technology to fill all the empty jobs in our plant and someday replace most of the jobs in our plant with AI robot technology. Where are all those people going to go?
Yeah, they didn't just buy that to make cool commercials.
And if you didn't get, if not for that kind of money, and if you aren't trained in a career where you can work on marine, power sports, motorcycles, cars, trucks, you're going to be going, oh gosh, 5-6 years ago, I wish I would have gone to UTI and got training, because now I actually need a job. And I can't wait for the day people knock on my door and go, hey, can I have a job? I heard you're hiring. Yeah, but I'm only hiring master ASE certified technicians or people who were trained right out of UTI. Well, I'm not. Sorry. Next. So you got to think about these careers. They are getting people set up for a future, which is here and coming quickly. With all the electronics, you need somebody who's going to train you right. And if you are ready to go right now, our friends at Carmax, they're hiring people. Carmax is hiring experienced auto technicians for many of its 200-plus stores nationwide. And if you're looking for a job where you can make a great living while working on the cars you love, Carmax is the place for you. Join Carmax and grow your technical expertise and work with state-of-the-art tools and technology. Work on the cars you love. Join Carmax. Apply today at CarmaxAutotech.com.
866-594-4150. Let's go to California and talk to Joe. Joe, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Hi, I'm out here. I got a 2014 Chevy Silverado with a bunch of electrical issues.
Oh no! Oh no!
I've had it I've had it into the dealer. I don't know, probably 3 times now. The issues I'm having, I have a service trailer brake light that comes on, service anti-theft system. The vehicle does not die unless I turn it off, and then it will not restart for X amount of time. It ranges anywhere from 2 minutes to 30 minutes. And usually before it dies or before it doesn't restart, the steering assist reduces, the AC flutters. I've had, when it was in the dealer, they say there's a lot of low volt codes on multiple systems, and they replaced the negative cable in May, then they replaced it again in July, and then yesterday they did the positive cable. And then sometimes the remote start doesn't remote start. That's what I got. What do you guys think?
It won't remote start if there's any codes active in the system. It's going to shut it down, keep it from starting to protect itself. They want you in the car to monitor things, so that's why it doesn't do that.
On those factory remote
Would that
starts.
be
Right.
Would that be for like a check engine light only, or because there's no lights on the dash?
Nope.
If I go to fire it up and then the anti-theft kicks on, I turn it off, restart it, and it goes away, and then it will remote start later before those codes are cleared. It's just like a one-time thing. Once I start it, it'll remote start after that.
Yeah, there are some codes in there that won't turn on the light until they've got 2 drive cycles on them, but they will prevent it from remote starting. Any communication codes will do that as well, or real communication faults. And if you have all these things going on, like you're saying, and low voltage codes coming up in the system, you have a communication error going on that's active in that. Replacing those cables probably isn't going to help unless they have verified that that is the problem by taking a voltmeter and going from one end of the cable to the other and saying, oh, look, we've got a voltage loss here. And that's what we do. We would go right to the battery, right on the post, not on the actual connection itself. We want to be on the post of the battery so we know if there's a weakness there. And then we're going to go to the other end of the cable. And if we don't have a resistance issue and we don't have a voltage drop, I'm not going to spend the money and replace that cable. I should be able to physically see it or see a physical drop. And if I don't, I'm leaving it. Then we've got to go through the system and make sure I've got proper volt. If I've got a body control module or an engine control module or a window, whatever it is that says low voltage, I should be able to go to that part and see if I have low voltage there. And if I don't, but I'm still getting a code, I know the system's lying to me. And is it that one module? Could be likely if it's only one module giving me a code. But if it's 6 modules, that's an unlikely story. I think they're all ganging up talking about stuff that's just their opinion, not their fact. So what could be causing that?
The modules are ganging up or the techs?
The modules.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Definitely.
they're all just saying, well, we think, we should just feel this way because the big module's telling us we should.
So like in a module round table?
Yeah, it's the same modules that make the light go on 4 miles after I leave the shop.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
the one.
So they're
Yeah.
naughty. All right.
Yep.
Got
Then
it.
they turn off when you come back. Just like the dog goes, no, I'm not going to the vet. Anyways, the one module failing can cause other ones to go bad. And sometimes we will plug our scanner in and do an all module scan and look and see which module is missing, which one doesn't show up on here. And if we know we've got a rear accessory module in the car, I physically can see it, but it doesn't show up on my scanner and it's down, I'll say, hey, I can't, this one doesn't work and all the other ones are doing weird things. I think this one might be causing my issue. So these car computers work like a home computer or business computer. They have many different computers tied together by cables, like you do with your home computer. And if you short any one of those out, the rest of them are going to get mixed messages and shut down and give false codes. So it only takes one module to fail on those. That 2014, we put more body control modules in there than any other module. And next to that, we do a lot of radios. We've had radios cause this problem in your vehicle. They've got something in there called a human interface module behind the radio in the dash. And that is your touchscreen, your radio, your climate control, all that stuff going together. And that thing is a big culprit, right? And it's getting almost, I'd say it's almost 50-50 equal with the body control module for failing and causing other modules to give false codes when that happens. So if one of those 2 modules, they come back and tell you that one of the, either the body control module or the
Module. Human interface module.
HMI,
HMI, human machine interface,
Yeah,
they call it.
That's right.
Different cars called different. That's a human machine interface, HME or HMI. If that is bad, yeah, that's a very viable possibility because they can both cause all sorts of wacky things. Had one the other day that it would just go down the road and the air conditioner, they'd set it on high and it was blowing nice and cool. But the minute, it was like our S10 call, about the minute they would hit, I think it was 86 or 87 degrees on the outside temp, all of a sudden the inside would go to full hot on both sides and stay hot until the outside temperature cooled down. And the compressor was running everything. It was just moving the doors to full hot. So that module can cause all sorts of wacky things to happen in there. But not saying that that's bad, but it's a possibility. Mm-hmm. But it's difficult. You know, for us in the mechanic world here, we're working on these every single day in the shop. And as we're working on these things, there's problems with the with modules and trying to diagnose these things are like, oh my goodness.
I am happy to hear though that they are trying basic power first, and
right.
You know, they're not trying to throw a bunch of stuff at it because we've seen the same scenario where a repair facility will start throwing a lot of modules at it and spending a lot of money in a hurry, and that can be the wrong.
Shannon bought a Mercedes that was hit by lightning back in 2002 or something like that, and they had replaced every single module in it. And it turned out once we got it all running, we started plugging in the original ones. Once we had it running, we went, oh, that one's good. Put it on the shelf for sale. That one's good. Put it on the shelf. I think we had one out of all of them that was actually one of the burnt.
It was one of the new ones they had bought.
Yeah,
I know we've told that story before. They bought a brand new one and put in there, and they subsequently fried it, trying to get it going again. And so the assumed good module was still stopping everything. So.
Joe, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. And take it from someone who had a radio problem. The radio is a crazy system in my
it's
car.
It's interfaced deeply into the electronics now.
So much is
not just a speaker. And
yeah, it is crazy. And the switching out the stereo made you have to make a bunch of other moves to make it happen. It's not like it was.
I thought it was cool back in the 80s when they went to speed-controlled volume. Mm-hmm. I thought, oh, my gosh, my radio is interfaced directly with my speed sensor on
Pontiac,
my car.
I remember the first Pontiac.
SCV, turn it up and down. It's like, this is great. Mm-hmm. The volume goes up and down. Now every car, it's just...
Now it has low, medium, high, different settings.
Mm-hmm. Built in there. You just... yeah. I mean, they're fully integrated. You could read stuff out of your car on there.
866-594-4150. Let's go to Georgia and talk to Tony. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Tony, what can we do for you?
Hey, you guys are awesome. Y'all always help me with very sound and great advice, and I'm listening to y'all all the time out here running my lawn care business on podcast.
Thank you.
And so my question for today is I have my wife's 2007 Chevy Tahoe. Y'all helped me with a lot of evap issues, and I've got all those fixed to my knowledge. It's been a few months, no issues, no codes, nothing. But what I'm dealing with now is like if you start the vehicle up, everything's fine. You drive to church, you go to church for an hour or two, you come out, and then when you go to start it up, it stumbles all over itself. Sometimes it seems like it's rich when you start it up, and sometimes it seems like it's lean and it wants to just keep cranking, no start, because it's not a push button, but even if you let go of the key, it just keeps starting, until it starts. And then once it starts, it's fine. But it seems to do it. It never does it when the vehicle's cold. It only does it after you've ran it for a little bit. You shut it off somewhere, and then it does it again. I have replaced plugs and wires, and like I said, basically the whole evap system is new because I was wondering if I fixed the evap system, if that was part of the problem, but I think it's a separate issue. I'm wondering if I should buy 4 injectors and put them on one side over one of my weekends when I have free time, and then run it and see if that makes a difference. My gut says it's fuel related, but I guess it could be fuel pump or whatever. I just wanted to get your guys' opinion on what I should do to move forward with that, because we want to drive the vehicle to Kentucky in October. I just don't want to have any issues on the way or anything. I'm getting no codes or anything, or do you think I should just keep running it until it gets worse?
Do you have this problem happen anywhere other than church?
Yeah, it can do it anywhere. But
Because I say, if it was just
but
church,
it,
if it was just church, you should probably stay. Maybe there's something yet you need to talk about.
Telling you need to hang out
and it
longer.
doesn't do it. It doesn't do it every time you go somewhere. It's just like maybe 50% of the time when you're at different places. You know what I mean? So
I know kind of what you're saying. You're feeling when you're starting to just don't want to go, and then it seems like it's flooded.
Yep.
I've got one in our shop right now. I'm working on for an oil use issue, but it also has a secondary problem, which is just what you're describing, and it turned out to be the mass airflow sensor on it. It was leaking at the mass airflow sensor at the tube, so it was leaking air in the system and wouldn't go. A leak in that air intake tube between the mass airflow sensor and the engine can do that, or a bad mass airflow sensor, and that can change with outside temperature. They're pretty sensitive to airflow and temperature and all sorts of stray volts. Things can happen with those, and they don't always set a code. A lot of times they don't, and they fail, and they'll do this. So if you've got another vehicle that that fits so many of the Chevy and GMC vehicles, that if you've got another one that's got the same, you could trade them out. It'd be one good test to see what happens. But before injectors, I would sure be looking at that mass airflow system and the air intake system closely first. And maybe even go so far to see if you could swap that out. Or if you got a buddy that's got, that same model mass airflow sensor on a truck, and they might be willing to swap out just for a couple days to see if it fixes it.
Tony, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. Let us know how it goes. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show, brought to you by Sturdivant's. 866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Rich. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Rich, what can we do for you?
Hey, good morning. Thanks for taking me call here. I have a 05 Sierra I've had for about a year and a half, 115,000 miles on it. And on a cold start, I'm frequently getting a kind of a chassis jolt. I feel it in my butt sitting in the driver's seat when I start it. Don't get it on a hot restart, running around town doing errands, but just sitting in the garage after it's sat for over the weekend or just overnight. And I'm just curious where that's going to lead me to.
Russ, maybe you're getting it. I'm not getting it. A chassis jolt.
You start up the car. You felt it before, I'm sure. You start up a car when it's cold, especially in those. And when you start the engine up, it feels like the clutch is partially out and it starts to move.
Okay.
And then it releases. Just for a second, it moves, but the whole vehicle actually
I got
will.
you. I was thinking for some reason of an electrical shock.
And you felt it in that 3, 4, 5, 6 Sierra and Tahoes. Mine will do it a little bit, just barely moves, and then it's fine. Then it quits. But I'm wondering if you started it and put it in neutral and then started the vehicle when it was cold. I've never tried that with mine, but I'm wondering if it would move a couple feet. I bet it would, because it's like it's in gear. And I'm not sure what that comes from. Mine developed it. It's got 310,000 or something on it now, but it developed it somewhere around 220, 230. And I'm thinking we've never dug into it because I was like, it's not a problem. I felt this in hundreds of cars over my career. And something is it's got to be getting through the valve body to a clutch. So either a valve is leaking a little bit until the solenoids are in the position they're supposed to be in when you fire it up, or the torque converter is dragging a little bit when you first start it up, something like that. Mine, I have not flushed the transmission where it's at now, because I'm at the point where it needs a transmission.
And you're a little nervous if you flush it, you won't have that friction there.
Right, so I'm not going to flush it, and it's time to replace the vehicle. But now with vehicles being $1 million to get the cheapest one, I'm just like,
terrible.
what do I do?
Right.
So if your fluid is not really burnt, if it's just slightly off color red, it doesn't smell horribly burnt, I would put a cleaner in the transmission. I would start it up and run it through all the gears, get it out on the highway, get it into overdrive and lock up, and then start and stop several times and do that for about 15, 20 minutes, and then put the flush machine on it, completely flush it out, and see if it changes it, because it's probably due for a flush anyways. If it's got over, that's fully synthetic in that Dextron 6, so if it's over 80,000 miles, it's time for a change in that, and then see if it clears it up.
Rich, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. So now you know the Jolt. Now you can read that Jolt. You get that?
I do, but it didn't click right away.
I used to drink a lot of Jolt Cola back in the end of the 80s.
Oh, you're making me remember a lot of things.
I'd go through
so out of my mind.
5 or 6 of those a day, and
Memory
now I
lane
can't drink any caffeine, but man.
Let's talk to Bruce. Bruce, you're on the Under the Hood show. What can we do for you?
Morning, guys. I got an old 09 Honda Fit and manual transmission, and sometimes I'm driving it, it feels like the RPMs kind of go up with no extra power. It feels like you kind of push that clutch in just a little bit, and the motor revs, or a slipping feeling.
Well,
is that a bad transmission going out? What do you think?
No, it could be related to the clutch itself, since it's a manual transmission. And optimistically, you hope it's related to the hydraulics of the clutch or the adjustments of the clutch, which there aren't a lot in the hydraulic system. Or it could be just that the clutch is starting to go bad, or maybe the throw-out bearing that rides on the main shaft could be hanging up a little bit. There's different things that happen inside those clutches that can make them slip torque as it's engaging power.
Air in the hydraulic system has ever got low or leaked, and that air will expand with heat. So the longer you drive it, the hotter it gets, the more it expands, and it starts pushing on the clutch a little bit and starts slipping. You know, sometimes changing the fluid.
Yeah, that's
out.
when it happens. When it's really warmed up is when it happens.
You might try changing the fluid, flush the fluid out, because anything in there that is not brake fluid, air, moisture can cause that to start doing that. As it builds up heat, it starts to depress that clutch a little bit, and there's not much room in there. When you start to push it, it's going to go, when it's brand new, normally just a tiny little bit, but if it takes up a little bit of that room with pressure from air or something in there, yeah, it could. I would try, that's the cheapest thing. Flush it out first.
Clutches used to always
Flush
have...
out the...
Go ahead.
The master cylinder and slave cylinder?
Just flush... Yeah, the fluid in the cylinders,
yes,
you said?
Just that, not the trans clutch fluid, or not the manual trans fluid, but the actual fluid there. And if the vehicle's up there, I think that's like a 60, 70,000 mile change. It wouldn't hurt to change the trans fluid, but that's not going to affect your slipping. But it's just time. You're down there, might as well change it.
And, you know, these used to always be mechanical, and in the 90s, 80s, they started switching everything to hydraulic. And so that is some of the problems that came along with it, but they're very few. And this is just like brake master cylinders. A lot of people don't think, oh, I don't have to flush that. But there is an interval on that stuff eventually. And if you don't do it, you can run into some problems. So let's hope it's that, and he doesn't have to get a clutch replacement.
Bruce, thanks very much for the call. That'll do it for hour one. Hour two is coming up. I also want to go back memory lane just for a second. When we were on our road trip, I was getting the car washed. And I pulled into a car wash and saw something I haven't seen for a long time. First of all, the car wash was $4 for the works. I was very happy with that. And there was a sign taped to the entrance of the car wash that said, absolutely no Grand Prix allowed in this car wash. And I thought, that's not something you really see much anymore. References to Grand Prix.
Specifically.
That'll do it for this hour of the Under the Hood Show. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. The phone number to reach us, 866-594-4150. From the Autotempest.com studios, all the cars, one search. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Welcome to Under the Hood. Thanks for joining us.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter, here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. Jim called in during the break, and he's ready. He's got $1 million idea. Is it $1 million idea for us, Jim, or are you just bragging about the idea?
No, I wish. I frankly just think it'd be a great thing from a safety standpoint for everybody. I don't get it. That up in Canada, clear back in the 2012 area, the like Subaru Imprezas, you can adjust the headlights from inside the cab. I've got a Honda Goldwing. You can adjust the headlights from inside the cab if your wife gets on the back of and changes the angle of the headlights.
Oh no!
But pickups, $100,000 pickups. You can't adjust the headlights. So when you put a trailer on, all of a sudden you can see all the top of the trees, but you can't see the cars, and you're blinding all the vehicles. So whether it be you sell it to the manufacturers or a little worm drive motor, basically like what they have on my Goldwing, so that you hit the button and the worm drive just rotates the adjuster up and down so that you can keep your lights on the road.
So Chris has a car, a Toyota Avalon, with auto leveling headlights. They didn't used to work, but we fixed them. They're still working, right? So sometimes.
Sometimes.
Most of the time. Yeah.
Most of the time.
We put a level sensor on the back because it had a broken wire or something, but that's made them go. Either way. So we half fixed Chris's car, but they're pretty cool. You start the car up and they go up, down, left, right, and then they center and do their thing. But they're based on that same thing. If there's something in the trunk, they level. If you're going up a hill, they level, more people in the car. It's really cool. I can't think of any truck that has those other than an SUV like a Lexus, a high-end Lexus.
Our 06 Range Rover has them.
Right, but not a Ford, GM, Chevy, Chrysler, and those. I can't think of a Toyota truck, a regular Toyota truck. I can't think of any that have the auto leveling feature. But think
about who pulls trailers more and all.
Well, exactly, trucks. So I agree they should be on there. Now they have really, since the IAHS they started rating headlight systems. Insurance Institute for Highway Safety for vehicles, and they started bombing so many of them. They're like, your headlights suck. They're awful. And these were $100,000 vehicles, and they're like, they're awful. We have got some $30,000 cars with better headlights that,
from a safety standpoint,
yeah, they way outperform yours. And what they did is they said, you need to be able to see an object on the road clearly at X number of yards and be able to stop at a certain miles per hour. And these were like, oh, there it is, smash. They couldn't do it. And they had like these cheap cars that were outperforming some of the bigger ones with special. So they started getting better and better. And this only occurred 3-4 years ago. So now we're seeing more HID type headlights. We're seeing that don't blind other drivers, and more headlights that have auto leveling and auto around corners and things like that. So
follow me headlights.
Down the road, it's bound to happen, and it's bound to be mandatory.
Will it be easier for the manufacturers when they put sensors in for everything else that they'll be able to just tap into that system for the headlights? You know what I mean?
Yeah. What I've seen it on, it seems like every EV manufacturer I've seen has that option available, or it's standard on the car. Whether it's a Tesla or a BMW or a Ford, all these things are starting to do that. And I think a lot of it is just technology. When they're doing the full redesigns of models, you see those kind of lights.
Oh, sure. Is it as simple as a lag in headlight manufacturing where it's just not caught up? So while they can do it, they have 10 million headlights.
I have not looked at the 2021 model GM trucks yet. They have completely changed the headlights completely on them. And the way they're changed, they may auto level now. I do not know because I haven't
or the
new
Fords that are coming out.
Yeah, I haven't had to work on the headlight system on one of those yet. We've done other stuff to them, but not headlights. So that I would have to look at. But yeah, I think what you're saying is a great idea. But even before that would be an even better idea would just be to, have a switch on the dash that turns the lights on and off, period. All the lights, the dash lights inside, the outside lights, all of it. So people don't drive around with just their daytime running lights on the front and no tail lights on because their dash is so bright that they think their lights are working.
I can't believe that hasn't been mandated yet.
And it can be changed with on a laptop with the software by the factory. And they're not saying they recall cars that are 12 to 15 years old because the fuel pump may fail and stall in an intersection, but they won't recall the car because the headlights may not be turned on and it may cause a collision. Which is more prevalent? If I drive down the road and leave tonight at dusk, I'll guarantee I'll see a half a dozen of them between the shop and my house But how many cars am I going to see that are 15 years old that may have a failing fuel pump to stall in an intersection that they have recalled? It doesn't, with 200,000 miles, it doesn't make sense to me. So I like your idea.
Jim, thanks very much for the call. I've discovered something recently that surprises me. The new you know how we get calls constantly and you hear chatter all the time, people complaining about the new headlights and how blinding they are. They're great if you're inside the car, but if it's coming at you, it's a problem. I have no problem with those. For whatever reason, the new style headlights, when they are shining into my car where my whole family is like, geez, that's blinding, I don't even notice. Isn't that weird?
Just a different type of light.
Yeah. My eyes, my turtle eyes, I guess, don't see the...
What we should have done is in the beginning, when we first, with cars, when cars used to have the lights in the side and a lot of them were red, that they had candles in them and stuff like that. We're
going way back.
Yeah. Well, we should have in the beginning, and we can't now. But in the beginning, it's like stoplights. Why did they choose green and red? Red could have been go. Green could have been stop. They could have just done it back.
I know what
Who knows?
Say.
We should have put high-powered red lighting on the front of all cars, and the rear tail lights, the stop lights, could have been yellow for caution, and those could have been in return. And the reason for red lights is same reason we use them in an aircraft. Is because your eyes, if you're staring at a bright red dash, you can look out the window into the dark and see another aircraft or a tower or whatever it is, because your eyes don't focus and adjust on that. White lights, it takes 10, 15 minutes for you to start adjusting. So every time a car is coming at you and you go, I can't see, because it's just regular standard headlights, even if they're not blinding you, you look off. As soon as that car passes, you can't see as well. But if you drive for 10 more miles without a car, all of a sudden you're like, wow, my headlights are great again. And then the car passes and you're like, whoa, try it sometime. It's adjustment.
866-594-4150. John, we're going to talk to you after the break. 866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. Let's go to Nebraska and talk to John. You're on the Under the Hood Show. John, what can we do for you?
Well, I've got an 05 Impala with a thing that's 3,400 motor in it, and 2 or 3 times a month, it absolutely will not start. I mean, you turn the key, nothing. But you continue turning the key, say 25 or 30 times, or maybe a certain amount of time goes, elapses, all of a sudden it'll start. The other night it wouldn't start when I got in it. So I fiddled with it for a while, got in the other car, went and did my what I had to do. I got back in that Impala as soon as I got home, hit the key, and it started. Now, we replaced the starter on it, but one of my boys had a car exactly like it, and it did the same thing. It absolutely it would not click or nothing, but you just hit the key so many times, and eventually it will start.
Well, that gets frustrating when you can't get that figured out, and it's the time that you really want to go somewhere. There's the time that it definitely doesn't start. I'm sure, right?
Right.
When you're not in a hurry, you just want to move the car to the other side of the garage or something, or
starts right up.
Move it outside, starts right up. I guarantee it.
Well, it depends. I mean, it just takes this notion to not start.
It sounds like you might have something going on with the security system in that car, which is super common. I mean, Chris had one of these things. I've had them, and they do exactly what you're saying, just at random, whenever it feels like. And it's the security in that has a large portion of it has to do with the actual switch in the dash, where you're turning, not the key, but the tumbler system in the dash, where you're turning it to the start position. It's got a little sensor in there, and as it rotates, it passes, and it's all got to match. It's got to make the keys got to be right. But if any of that starts wearing out, it sets a security code and says you've got the wrong key in the car. And then if you turn it off or leave it on, and it'll reset itself. And it can do it at random. It might do it once a week, once a month, once a day. It might not do it for 6 months and then start again. But most of those we've seen with our customers have been replaced at least once. And it's the whole, not the electrical portion of the switch, but the lock cylinder part of it, which is basically the whole assembly behind your dash.
I found that it would work fine until I forgot the mechanism to get it going again. There was a sequence of events you could do.
Yeah.
I found that it would work fine until just the point where I forgot exactly what I was supposed to do.
If the car won't start for you, turn it to the crank position. Try to crank it, and it's doing nothing, and then just let go of the key. Just let it go, let it spring back to the run position, and let it sit there in that run position for about 15 minutes. And then shut it off for 30 seconds, and then repeat that same procedure.
It takes longer depending on how bad you need to be somewhere.
Yeah. Then
Never fast enough.
Right. And if yours is starting after a number of cranks like that, it might do it the first time. But after you turn it to the crank position, then let go of the key and let it sit for 15 minutes, turn it off for 30 seconds, then it might start right up.
Something on the dash, when it's been long enough, it changes.
There's a theft light that
it either comes on or goes
flashes,
off after
it'll go off and stay off. But then repeat that procedure. You may have to do it 3 times for a relearn, or it may do it on the first time or the second time. But if it does work after you turn to that crank position, then let go of it and let it sit, and then off for 30, and it does start, then it's in that key, and you can just replace that whole lock cylinder assembly. Comes with a key, the switch, the whole sensor, all of it. Then that's your problem. But all the GM cars with an in-dash switch like that, they all suffered through this at some point.
It is definitely the most likely culprit.
Mm-hmm.
For sure, yeah.
And that was in the era of the car where they mandated the recalls on all of them to replace it. And the recall was pretty cheesy. The way they did it, they put a little thing, they put a plug in your key to put the lock ring to the center of it instead of
so it wouldn't
slide
pull down.
Yeah, so it wouldn't pull down. And then they they took all your keys off and they just had one key hanging on there. And then people would go home and put all their keys back on and knock that center thing out. And they said, well, that was my problem, but that's why it didn't start. They replaced my whole lock cylinder, because they'd go back to the dealer a month later and they'd say,
still not working.
You need a switch. And but you just put that in. It's like, no, we didn't. We put this little piece of plastic
Well, that was later. And
why didn't they say that? Because if they would have said that and said, try this, and then people wouldn't have put more keys on it and ended the fix.
Bad messaging.
Yeah, it was weird.
Just not getting the word out to everybody that needed to get it out to.
So that's a very strong possibility of what's going on, because those cars, that's typically the most common item that fails on them.
John, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Tom. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Tom, what can we do for you?
Oh, good morning, gentlemen. Love the show.
Thanks.
Yeah, you betcha. I recently upgraded from an 01 Excursion to a 2017 Expedition, and I feel like I've gone from the Stone Age to the Space Age here.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. So I got 2 questions for you. She's got 93,000 miles on it. What should I be looking to do, take care of, to make sure this one lasts as long as my Excursions did? And secondly, what the heck is with this no cap when I'm putting fuel in my truck?
I love the questions.
Oh.
Yeah.
I got to ask about your Excursion first. How long did you have that?
Sure. Well, I had 2 of them, and I'm in construction, so I work them really, really hard. And over the 4 years that I had each one of those, I put on probably 80,000 miles of really rough work, and I beat them up.
Were either one of them a diesel?
No, I did not have diesel. I had gas.
They're kind of a treasured item for people. They want to find those nice old Excursion diesels.
They want the 7.3 ones.
Yeah.
Not the 6.0s.
They're really a cherished item. And for people that are not
familiar,
familiar,
they are.
They're basically a Super Duty Ford pickup made into the big sport utility. That was that generation when they did that.
I'm wondering if his 07 Expedition is going to hold up.
He's got 17 Expeditions.
I'm wondering if that's going to hold up as well as the. It might.
Well, hey, I'm going to back up here.
What engine's in this
Well,
one?
no, to us. This Expedition, you're not using the same way you use the Excursions, correct? Or are
I
you?
am not.
Good. Well, then that saves a lot right there. That
I
knocks off.
I got the feeling this Expedition is more of a creature comfortable cruiser now compared to the workhorses that the Excursions were.
Well, I am still going to work out of this vehicle, but I am not going to be carrying nearly as much stuff as I did before. I've scaled way back.
And then Russ asked the question: is this an EcoBoost in the Expedition?
It is.
Yep. So it's got the 3.5 EcoBoost in it, most likely.
What's the what industry are you in?
I'm a plumber.
Okay, that's what I just needed to know that.
Okay,
because I had to picture it.
With the EcoBoost will be fine if you're not over pulling with it. If you're not towing anything with it ever, you should be super fine. It's a pretty decent vehicle, but it is time for, at that many miles, it's really time to go start thinking about some fluid changes. Right around that 100,000 mile mark on these new ones with fully synthetics that are way more expensive, but they last way longer. You're talking 100,000 miles on a lot of fluid changes instead of 30,000 miles or less in some of the really old stuff. Transmission fluid, engine coolant, transfer case, front and rear differential. Take a look at the brake fluid. They make test strips to see if it's starting to become acidic, and if it is, the pH has changed, then you can flush that out. Don't want to over flush anything, but you don't want to under flush it either.
Oh, he knows.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't know about flushing, I'm sure.
Yeah,
plumber.
Way too much.
You want to get. Is it true that the toilets spin the other direction in Australia? Somebody asked me that the other day. They were talking about a camera on the back of a car. Anyways, so change those fluids. But Shannon, tell him what's up with lastly here with this stupid gas cap thing that
I'm still
a lot of
laughing
people
about
are coming up with.
The bad plumbing jokes. Oh my gosh, you guys!
Yeah.
That's usually. Oh.
Don't get me started with those.
Yeah. That's
well, we're gonna give it to the guy with the worst plumbing of the show here.
Well, no, the capless systems that they've went to on most of these vehicles, they're basically saying,
convenient.
We don't need you to worry about a gas cap anymore. We figured out how to set our evap systems, our purging systems, so that you could fill it, keep it sealed while you're filling it, just as well as what we were doing before. And I think it's great.
I like it. Yeah.
Russ, have you found any problems with the capless systems?
Yes.
Oh boy, I guess,
but very few.
More than normal. I mean,
not any more than with a gas cap. Probably more with a gas cap than without. So what they've done is they've reduced emissions when they put that nozzle on there. Now a lot of them have the boot on them, and they are keeping the air from going into the air and polluting while they're filling it. And you think, well, there's not that much coming out. Well, if you take 8 million cars a day that are refueling, yeah, it's really putting a lot out there in the atmosphere. So they do that. Works great. You can just stick it in there. You want to make sure it stays clean. If you're on a lot of dusty roads, get yourself just a plain old towel.
Okay.
Wipe it off.
Yep, they usually got them at the gas station. Nowadays, you know what I've been seeing lately at a lot of the convenience store gas stations, and it's a sign of the times. But I told you guys this, but they're out of a lot of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the garbages are a little more full because they're just all these places having a hard time finding extra help with job needs.
Yeah, the stuff's there, but they're not actually putting it out.
There's not stuff there usually
because they don't have the people.
Right.
They were out of ice cream cones at a Casey's store for 3 weeks. And then we went back in. I'm like, great, you have cones. They're like, but the machine says, I said, why is the machine out of order? You guys didn't have cones for 3 weeks and now it's out of order. Well, little secret, we did have cones, but nobody put them out because we were too busy. And now we don't have anybody to fill the machine. So I'm like, you kidding me?
Did you volunteer?
I went to the one down the street who had ice cream but no cones.
Wow.
There's a little
so we drove back. We drove back. They gave me 3 free cones, and I went to the other store and put ice cream in them.
Oh my goodness! This just took a turn.
Sure did.
So yeah, your cap, you'll be fine. I think it's a great system, but when they do fail, they just have an evap leak, which is the same as a cap, and they can be replaced. And I think that's covered under the 8-year, 80,000 mile emissions warranty too.
Yep. Okay. Tom, thanks very much for the call. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150. You're listening to the Under the Hood Show.
Make a radio appointment each week to hear the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show.
866-594-4150. From the Autotempest.com studios, all the cars, one search. And if you like our Facebook page or you subscribe to the YouTube channel and join the Hoodie Fan Club at UnderTheHoodShow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Carrie Edwards, who listens to us in Cedartown, Georgia. Congratulations from all of us here under the hood and our friends over at Universal Technical Institute, UTI.edu, getting you trained for the future. No matter what your age, you can pick one of their campuses across the country and get trained in automotive. Get trained in motorcycle mechanics, power sports, watercraft, marine mechanics, welding. Lots of great careers, and you need to get trained to get into those jobs. Right
What's that
now,
machine? The
big
lathe
demand.
machinery they call it. What are
CNC.
Yeah, that's on there too. I looked because I want to.
That's a big demand field right now.
Absolutely,
it's huge, and they're great paying jobs, and the pay is going up across the board. In the last year, pay has increased pretty much everywhere in all those fields. But you need to get the training, and then once you have training and you know what you're doing, places like Carmax are hiring experienced auto technicians for many of its 200-plus stores nationwide. And if you're looking for a job where you can make a great living while working on the cars you love, Carmax is the place for you. Join Carmax and grow your technical expertise and work with state-of-the-art tools and technology. Work on the cars you love. Join CarMax. Apply today at CarMaxAutotech.com.
Let's talk to Bruce. Bruce, you're on the Under the Hood show. What can we do for you?
Hey, got a question for you. I got a daughter going off to college. She's going to be 2 hours from home, and we're thinking about sending her a 2007 Toyota Corolla with a little under 200,000 miles on it. My question is, and she has the capability to do this, when winter comes around, to pull the battery and take it to her dorm room so that the cold in Fargo, North Dakota doesn't kill the battery. Good idea, or am I overthinking it?
I love my car so much growing up that I would bring my battery in at night and sleep with it, snuggle in the bed.
The easy
I didn't
answer.
do that.
It's a very easy answer in general. That's overthinking it.
Yeah. At the very if it can be plugged in, if there's a plug nearby, which a lot of, especially in the northern areas, people are going, what, a plug-in in the parking lot? What are you talking about? This is not a hybrid. It's not an electric car. No, a lot of them have plug-ins for the cold. So if you've got that, you can put it like a battery maintainer, battery tender type thing, Optima battery charger. Yeah, well, plugging it in would be the best way.
What about a heater, like a core heater?
Well, the battery should work. If the car is driven every day, should not be a problem, but if it's going to be driven once every 2 weeks or once a week, get a solar battery charger. They sit on your dash.
Okay, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, those are great.
It's gonna be. She isn't gonna. It's gonna probably get started maybe once every 2 weeks when she comes home.
Solar charger.
And yeah, so she's parking in a dorm style parking lot, so there is no electrical plug-in available.
Find the best way to do it is if you get one of those solar chargers. I've got a little small one, and I face it to the south on vehicles that are sitting outside, or I just put it's got a 10-foot cord, and I'll put the panel where it can sit facing up to the south in the winter, and it gets enough.
Plug that into the lighter port? Or do you have to?
But you've got to have a car that.
This is the first time that you've ever given that advice, Russ.
Oh, well, you've got to have a lighter that works all the time. So you're going to need to plug something into it and make sure when the key's out of the car that it works. Because some of those lighters in the foreign cars, they don't turn on until you turn the key on. So then you've got to hardwire, which is not a problem. You can hardwire a cable from either directly from the battery or from a circuit inside to a plug-in under the dash.
How have we gone this long without that coming up?
It's the first.
People always said they had a plug-in, so we didn't need to go solar. But then you just put this panel, if the car's facing north and south, that's the best way to do it.
It probably wouldn't even need that, would it? Because the daylight will get it enough.
You've usually got enough over a 2-week period, you're fine. But if you can stick it in your window or in the back window.
I just did a quick search for solar battery maintainers. How much you think they are?
$50.
$50. Bruce, what do you think?
I would say probably $50 somewhere in there, because a regular battery maintainer plug-in runs you about $40.
Well, first of all, I can tell a couple things by you two. I have 2 battery maintainers I didn't pay more than $19 for, so I'm on the line. Here's one for $14.99. Plugs right into the battery.
Get a better one than that.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, $14.99, $21.99, $24.99.
Get one that is mine was $44.97 off of Amazon, and I got a one that's a maintainer. It's not just a charger, because they do have the charger ones, and I've found if you put one of those on like a jet ski that sits outside, it will burn down the battery after 6 months of sitting there.
And that is important to know, too, that the solution for your daughter is a battery maintainer, not just a jump pack to start it when it... That's a good idea for her to have, but that's not a solution to keep it...
We're not a fan of bringing the batteries into the living quarters.
Or disconnecting them from the car.
It's just not... let's not do that unless we have... If you knew that all of a sudden they're going to have a... I hate to even say this out loud, but if it was going to be 40 degrees below zero actual temperature, you could do that, but the car's not going to want to start.
Right.
Yeah, it may not start by itself. And who wants to put a battery in when it's 40 below zero?
And just in general today, I mean, in 2021, your car can sit for, as far as starting it in the battery, it can sit for a long time.
Especially if it's got an AGM battery. If you're sending a kid off to college, if I was doing it myself, I'm going to put a brand new AGM battery in the car, and then I'm going to get one of the solar battery maintainers to go in there. And
now I feel
probably going to have zero issues with that car.
Our daughter just went down to Phoenix, and her and a couple friends were taking just a few-day trip, and her vehicle has been in a storage unit in the heat of Phoenix, and we had put a new AGM battery in there when we redid the car, and it's been sitting now since the end of the school year, and they quit early down there this year because of the stuff going on in the world, and she got in the car and started it up and took off. And it's been sitting in there for quite a few months in the heat. Lots of heat in a storage unit. Is that better
for a car to sit at 120 degrees standard than it is to go up and down? Or is that's still rough on a car because it's 120 degrees?
A steady temperature is always best because changes in temp they change quicker outside than the metal, so you get condensation.
Right.
You want if it changed at a slow temperature, it'd be fine, but that quick change outside gets hot and then it drops cold, you get condensation, and that's hard on parts.
Bruce, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to John. You're on the Under the Hood Show. John, what can we do for you?
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Fantastic, John.
Great. I got a 2006 Corolla, and just a comment on the battery from the previous caller, I just replaced the OEM battery 2 years ago. So the batteries in those Toyotas last a long, long time. But battery's not my issue. I replaced all the brakes on the vehicle, and on the rear brake on the passenger side, when I'm slowing down at a stop sign or a stoplight, I get, I'm going to call it a pulsating noise, but it's not pulsating. There's no pulsating in the brakes. There's no grinding noise. It's almost like a squeaky door hinge. It squeaks, it stops, it squeaks, it stops until the vehicle stops. And it only happens when you're going really, really slow. I almost thought the drum was out of round, so I took off the passenger side because I did put new drums and shoes on it. Put it on the driver's side thinking it would follow the drum, but it doesn't. And it only happens when you come into a stop. And I guess I don't know where to go next. New springs, new drums, and new brake pads. And it's only on the passenger side, rear brake.
You're way more ambitious than most of our people listening to be able to say that I took my brake drum off and swapped it to the other side.
Right.
Not that that's that hard of an operation, but that is definitely more than most people would try to do.
For sure.
Well, let me tell you this. It took me almost 3 hours to get the drums off, the old one, because they were original, but to swap them takes 10 minutes, until they get frozen on there. So,
now they're good to go. You can switch them quickly.
Whenever I want.
It sounds like it's rubbing on the backing plate. There's a steel backing plate behind there, and if you switch the drums, if they're equal, well, one side could do it if it's just barely touching the edge of that thing. And you should be able to pull the drum off and then look at the backing plate, look at the edge all the way around because it fits inside of the groove on the back of the drum, and look at that and see if there's any shiny spots. Get a flashlight out and look and see if it's contacted it anywhere. What do you think?
Oh, I think
Well, just a question on the backing plate. That's what the shoes all mount to, correct? I just want to make sure
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, because I did grease the contact points with anti-seize where the brake shoes push up against the backing plate, but I have not checked the outer edge.
Perfect. That's what you should do. And then look at the outer edge of it and see if it's touching the inside of there's a groove in the back of that drum, and it's got to fit in there perfect, and it may be touching it. Sometimes you got to use put a little bit of paint on there if you're not sure. Clean it off, put a little bit of paint around there, let it dry, and then put the drum back on and spin it. Tighten it all down good, spin it, and then take it back off and look for spots where it's worn the paint off. And then you just tweak it with some pliers a little bit, and you're fixed.
This guy today, he's batting 1,000
on
over
fire.
here.
No,
John, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. The Under the Hood Show is brought to you by Sturdivant's. 866-594-4150 from the Autotempest.com studios. All the cars, one search. This is the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Zach. Zach, you're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Hey, gentlemen. Good morning. Question for you here. I'm out of my depth completely on this. I have a 2017 Subaru Forester, fleet vehicle that's managed by one of those national outfits. Just got new tires on it, and I live in Sioux Falls, and it seems to me like when I get on the new part of the interstate, maybe where there are kind of like some grooves in the road, that my vehicle kind of shimmies all over the place. So that's my issue.
I got to learn to shut up when the callers are talking because they're so more interesting than me. But I can tell you exactly where one of the spots is. Yeah. Well, two of them. Probably one of them. Now, we happen to be in this town, so we know most of our callers we get from out of state and sometimes out of country. But I'm familiar with this area. So if you're on
229.
Interstate 229, close to Lincoln High School, on that corner area there where a lot of people have been crashing lately, that's one of the areas, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. And
pretty
then,
much from there on south to the 29 intersection.
Yep. So, all right. So what they've done, they have heavily rain grooved that area because of all the collisions they were having there. And I know the people out of state don't care two bits, but they are going to completely demolish and redo that intersection there over the next few years. So that may change. But what has happened is
I'm a road trip guy. There's a few other spots that I've been that have this new
other places.
Yeah.
So, but now here's where, like Chris said, effective to the rest of the world, maybe whoever rain grooves. We had this in Texas at some places where they would have very tall bridges that if they iced in the winter, they were super dangerous. So they rain grooved them. I could ride a motorcycle down these areas. And in Sioux Falls, when I ride the motorcycle, I don't anymore, but I used to, through that area, I was fine. And if I drove one of my cars, I was fine. But my other car, just the brand of the tire and the tread pattern on the tire decided to walk all over those grooves, and you'll be like, whoa, I'm losing, I'm going to crash. And some people, what I think, are actually overcorrecting, and that's what's causing the collisions, because that is a very high collision area when it shouldn't be.
Along with people driving like complete idiots.
Well, that to do it.
Phones.
So when you all of a sudden you go, whoa, and you get scared and you're on your phone and all over, but it is not necessarily the brand of tire, but the model of the tire on your car. So I could take that tire off of your car and put it on mine, drive through there, and I might be fine. But on your car, it does this. I may switch from whatever, let's say it's a Cooper tire. I might switch from a Cooper tire, one brand to their other model of tire that's in a Cooper, and I might be fine. So it's not the actual manufacturer. It just happens to be the shape and the space of the lugs and everything.
I wish they would put
tire.
up signs to let you know. Because I've brought my car into you right after
when
we
it's
did
a hazard to a motorcycle, it says groove pavement ahead. Remember those signs that are around other places in the country? I don't know if I've ever seen them in South Dakota, but it freaks me out when the first time I was on a motorcycle on a big road bike cruising down the road, and I didn't pay attention to the sign that said groove pavement ahead. Didn't even think about it. I hit it. And I was like all over, and I went, "What is going on?" And if you just go through it easy, you're fine. But if you're not used to it and you're trying to fight it, you can't. Keep
so
it straight.
long story short, there's nothing wrong with your car.
Nothing wrong with your car.
If
And
it
it's rain
only
proof.
does it on those.
I learned that today, too.
Now, we talked right over it. Are we on the same page? Or did you have something else on your question?
No, gentlemen, I appreciate the education. I'm glad to know it's not just me that's feeling that when I drive through there. So,
And it's weird.
Great stuff. I appreciate it.
We've got our town is great, but we have two unique things. We have a couple spots like that in a city of, getting up around 300,000 of the metro area or whatever it is. We have that unique groove in the pavement, so I can tell people I know exactly where it's doing it. And also we have two car washes that if you go through, you're probably going to have a car problem if you use the underbody wash.
If you have a hybrid, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, I've had conversations about that section of road with a dozen people.
And I could tell you with our license plates, who goes to what car wash by looking at their front license plates sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't affect mine because mine's set in a little dish.
But there's some you'll see when they're bent out.
And that's not the car wash.
No, it's a different one.
But I use that car wash that causes those problems when I want to clean the underbody of my Tahoe, keep the oil off of it, because it's like a power washer.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Todd. You're on the Under the Hood Show. What can we do for you?
Hey, good afternoon, guys. This is probably going to be another one of those questions where I'm just going to ask it and sit back and let you guys talk.
We're ready because we
do that a lot.
We're known to do that.
All right.
Yeah, you know how to do that. Well, I've got a 2016 Ford F-150 with the EcoBoost engine. And recently I was on a road trip and I visited one of the local gas stations and I saw a brand of fuel I wasn't familiar with, or an octane called 88. And I believe it was like a E85 or an 87, but I saw it here at the local gas station here, the Casey's, and it was labeled an 88 on it. And it said it was for vehicles 2001 and newer. And I was just wondering if that was safe to use in my pickup. It's a little bit cheaper, so I thought, hey, with the gas prices going up, is it going to hurt my engine in the long run? Am I going to get worse fuel mileage? It looked like the octane was a little higher than the normal 87 octane that I've been putting in there with the 10% ethanol.
And Todd, you're exactly right. There is a simple answer to this question.
Yeah, and we have, for people that say, I'll never use ethanol in my car, I ask them, well, what do you use? And a lot of these were in Minnesota, filling up at Casey's, because Casey's was, I believe, the first adopter of the 88 on the pump that just says 88, and you go, well, what is that? It's E15, 15% alcohol content. And a lot of these people said, I never use it. Like, well, what are you using? 88. I just use the 88 because it's straight. I'm like, no, it's not. That's E15. And they go, oh, well, then it's great. I love it. The increased octane offsets the very minuscule amount of mileage you would lose by less BTU in the fuel by it having a little bit of alcohol in it, and it lowers your price. So works great. That's where they found that sweet spot there to make that work. But recently there's been things that are going to change the way you see that. It won't be available year round. It comes and goes. So you may see 88, you may not. But while 88's on the pump, it's a good choice for vehicles.
And your EcoBoost is going to love that octane.
Yeah, it's a good thing for that. I know a lot of people. Now it says 2001 and up, and the reason for that is everything over 10% was not certified in older cars. They could have paid millions and millions and millions of dollars and certified it in older ones, and it would be just fine because people are using it all the time. As long as it's a fuel injected car. If it's a carbureted, no, you just want to stick with no ethanol in a carburetor, 10% at the most. But yeah, you should be just fine with it.
So the easy answer is 88 is E15, and it's fine.
And it's fine. Yep.
866-594-4150. Todd, thanks for the call. Now let's talk to John. You're on the Under the Hood show, John. What can we do for you?
Well, I was on actually a couple weeks ago when you were off, Chris.
Okay.
Yeah, and you guys helped out a lot, so I need help on a different car.
Okay.
I got a '99 4Runner, and it's mostly my off-road car, but I still drive it during the day, so I like my AC and my heat. There's a servo under the dash, apparently, that it electrically controls one of the heat valves or something along those lines. And I had it replaced by someone I thought was a decent mechanic. And now, basically, when I put on my air conditioning, if I have it at max cold, all the way down, I get great air conditioning. The second I raise it a single degree so that it reads, 67 degrees or whatever, I go to full heat.
That is either your control on your dash failing or the blend door control motor underneath. The most common thing is the blend door control motor on all cars. They just fail. And it's probably a $30 or $40 item under there. $99, if it's not failed yet, it's going to fail. So it wouldn't hurt to put one in there.
But is that
it's a
what
maintenance part?
Do you know which motor they replaced already? Just now, you said.
Well, the one that was replaced was not a blend door. It apparently is the
mode.
It does apparently two different things. One, it's attached to a cable that goes to a valve under the hood.
Heater control valve.
Heater control. Yeah. Just say it's in the heater. It's in the heater line. And then something else does something else like a blend door, but apparently it's not a blend door. I'm afraid to climb under the dash.
Recirculation door motor. It's letting fresh air in from outside and inside. That's probably what they were thinking.
Okay, but it's one servo that does both.
Yep. So I would be looking at the temp blend door motor. If it has not been replaced, replace that, and then the secondary item would be your temp control head. But the temp control head's way more money. So I would.
Is that vehicle new enough where you could hook your scanner up and watch to make sure it's controlling it correctly or not?
I don't believe it's been a long time since we've done one on a Toyota like that, but I don't believe that was an option in that car until 2003 or something like that.
John, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. We're up against the clock on this, so I have to let you go. Great to hear from you. I grew up with John.
Cool.
And he called while I was gone, and now he called back. Thanks, John.
So we got something coming up. Make sure you look at our YouTube for some special podcast stuff.
John, are you still there? Hey, podcasters, we are now, in just a little bit, we are going to record a special podcast/vidcast. Do we still call them vidcasts?
Whatever.
Is that a thing?
Vlog for all you people who hate, for all you people that hate electric cars. And we're going to tell you why you should hate the Mach-E Mustang, why you should totally hate it. And also, like Chris would say, why you should love it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And why you should be indifferent. But we're gonna give you a no holds barred because we took this thing out and drove it.
I have a question. Are we gonna stream that live while we do it?
No.
Okay.
No, we're just gonna record it so we can cut out all the swearing because there was some moments when Shannon was driving.
Yeah.
And we'll cut out the tire squealing, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But we're gonna run it down just the way we saw it because we hate people, including ourselves, that just go, well, I love it or I hate it based on nothing. So we sat in the car, put the seatbelts on, and drove it and made our own decision about it. So we're gonna show you what we did.
And we'll post it in a day or two, and it'll be
You can listen.
Yep.
You can watch.
Yep.
Or you could do both.
Mm-hmm. And maybe if well, never mind. I was just going to ask a question that doesn't matter on air, so I'll ask it off. But yeah, it was interesting. I'll say that.
The video will be in the end card of this YouTube stream, so you can click on it and go right to it.
Did anybody notice our lights change during the show?
Yeah. There's a good question for the chat,
for the streamers.
Chris told me to change it, and you're over there going, "What happened?"
I'm just curious if it makes any difference. I think it looks fine, Red.
Hey, maybe you could vote if you're watching the YouTube stream, so tell us what color you want behind us. Do you want?
Oh,
do you want red?
We could do a poll too. I just read about the new polls.
There's green. There's red. There's that's supposed to be blue, but it looks like purple. That's
light blue,
aqua, I guess, and then we got that. Purple. And then we could go really crazy, and we could have it switch.
Can we have it do a slow fade, like a slow fade, color to color?
Yeah,
let's do that next week.
I think it's.
By the way,
right
I am not pretending to be excited. I'm actually like, let's do that.
Let's try it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for joining us on the Under the Hood Show. Make sure if you have a question, you can call our number 866-594-4150. You can call it anytime and either leave your name and number and we'll call you back, or you can actually record your question and think about how the questions sound on the air. You know, hey, this is Chris from Sioux Falls, and I have a 98 Pontiac, and I was wondering how I changed the blend door motor. I had to just pull in whatever I could there on.
You were reaching pretty good.
So anyway, there you go. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it very much. Have a great day. Listen to the Under the Hood Show. Now I need to find my mouse because I got 17 mice. Is it mice or mouses?